Well, you might just say trees are my thing. I do love to paint them. So many designs. I like to think of it as tree portraiture. Well, we got a portrait today, and I'm going to introduce some really interesting dramatic light, and that's always fun. So let's do it. You've always wanted to climb a tree. Come on. How? Throw you up there? Well, you get stuck. You're on your own. Well, hello there, minders. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. We are going to do a painting today, sort of a light play painting. By that I mean I've got an idea that I wanted to practice and study where the light is hitting the top part of the trees and the bottom part is in shadow, sort of a last rays of the day, or catching the last rays of the day kind of a thing. Something I was inspired by when I saw this painting. And I'm not copying this painting, but I am going to let my inspiration go heavily from it. And I love light effects. I think light makes or breaks a painting half the time. You know, dull, flat, uninteresting lighting is just that. Dull, flat, and uninteresting. So all I'm doing on dry paper here, I just laid in some washes. I fuzzed a few of them or bleeded out a few of them with the spray, if you saw that. But I'm just trying to get some sort of streaky, simple background effects in there. And the trees are going to sit over the top of this. And I wanted some distant, warm sunlight. The sunlight, though, in this case, would actually be coming from behind me. And the trees that you will see coming are going to catch those rays. So I wanted the foreground to be cool, but simple. And I just decided to put in, sort of a very simple indication of a distant tree line. This was kind of a mistake because the sort of more hard-edged linear background elements there and these sort of textural tree lines end up showing through the trees. And as I paint these trees, you'll see that. I should have drawn out where the trees are going first, but I didn't do that. I just wanted to get in there and paint. I thought, I paint sometimes these trees with a big flat brush and kind of like to let them develop as I go. But I could have easily have just drawn them in too, and that would have let me know where to leave the background out. Or at least not paint it in to begin with. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track here, but so I'm painting the trees, and I wanted a ochre sort of sunny color, and I wanted to keep it light, which is why it's fairly transparent. And here we're just rooting those trees to the ground, but I want a cluster of 3, and while it's wet, I'm going to stick in some shadows. Just some soft wet and wet. Also, while it's wet, I'm going to pick up some highlights. A lot of times you can do that with a wet brush, and you'll get a little bit more. It actually sort of pushes back the pigment like a backwash. But you can pick it up with a drier brush if you do it quickly before it gets out of hand. And you get some nice highlights. Technique I love to use. So let's put in those other trees. I'm looking for something very moody and very dramatic for what I would consider, I guess, late afternoon, early evening sunlight. I like using the flat brush for these trees because it gives you a little more of a natural, to me, it feels like a more natural, angular here with little nodules sticking out. It just, I like the feel that it gives, almost an automatic feel to the way the trees look, in the biggest, heaviest parts of the trunk. So now what I'm doing is putting in one large connected shadow in the foreground and up partially up the tree trunks. This is sort of the heart of the effect. So it's gonna cool all that down, put it in shadow, reduce the contrast. And again, I want this connected so it does look like a shadow. Felt like maybe it wasn't quite dark enough, so I'm adding in a little bit more. Now, the interesting part is that the lower part was drying quick and was still damp. So I ended up with a lot of backwashes down there. Sometimes that can be a real problem. In this case, it was actually a blessing. It was a happy accident. I like the effect that it left, but you can see on the left side all those backwashes. And a foreground that is mostly in shadow, but needs some texture also. That's kind of the little accidents you look for sometimes. Well, now it's just a matter of continuing those shadows, pulling them up into the upper parts where there might still be shadow, assuming that our light's coming from behind and to the left. And then working the contrasts down into the lower trunk, adding some detail as we go. And the big challenge here is adjustment, value adjustment. I did a lot of that, keeping the lower parts of the trunk deeper, less contrast, but much darker in the shadows, keeping the upper parts lighter, warmer. And again, you'll just see me adjusting contrast as I go, and in a lot more detailed way. When you start to see it take shape like this, with the details and the contrast and the light play, this is when it becomes exciting. And I felt like the light play was already working the way I had hoped it would. So, yay. And when that happens, then I kind of feel more comfortable about going in and doing details, putting in some of the branches and the fine branches. And I love adding character to these trees with fine branches. But now I have a very particular approach that I've kind of adopted over the years. It's gone from just being realistic and painting in, realistic branch detail to very definitely considering design of space. There's space between the branches, and the branches divide and subdivide space. And I just really like to do that, to subdivide space in interesting ways. For instance, details will clump naturally if you're looking, in real life at a tree, and they will separate and leave open areas. So that's kind of important. And I do all that with an eye towards design. And here I'm just bringing the value of that foreground down a little more, working it in. Just wanted it very cool and shadowy down there. This right here, this big limb, this was a compositional decision. Just wanted the detail and the branches of that tree to reach over to the left side a little more and feel like your eye was being pulled over there or pulled back, either way. I was glad for that decision, actually. And again, this branch detail, but I'm dividing up that space in what to me is interesting ways. We also need to put some cast shadows on those tree trunks because in a situation like this with sunlight, you will get those. You'll get quite a lot of them sometimes. You can see where I'm kind of clumping detail together. I just find that a very desirable look. The one thing you don't want to do, or at least I don't want to do, is just evenly distribute branch detail. I just found out that that does not look very good, at least not to my eye. So just a lot of little tweaks and adjustments here, little detail additions, a few more low, deep contrast adjustments in those lower shadows just to get the pop that I want to see. This paint looks really dark when you first put it down. It ends up drying a good bit lighter, but I'm starting to really be happy with that contrast now. Hopefully you can see how those backwashes in the ground looked great. I mean, added some real character. And you can see too how it's calm over to the left side, but a little more detailed and textural on the right. I like that kind of contrast. I thought it'd be great just to add some detail branches that come forward that were light, catching the light. So a little gouache to do that. And a little bit of a shadow under them. So they were a little more noticeable. Where they cross over to the sky, you can see I made them dark. And I love this. I love doing this. I think I got the effect I was after. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you patrons so much for support of this channel, and we'll see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.